In today's lesson, we're doing understanding motor performance and identifying sources of atypical performance. And we're looking at the senses, and there's really a lot more than just sight, hearing, touch. We have the vestibular, the proprioceptive. The vestibular system includes all the parts of the inner ear and the brain that processes the sensory information involved with controlling balance and eye movement. If diseases or injury damages these processing areas, the vestibular disorders can result. People with a vestibular disorder typically have poor balance and atypical muscle tone. Vestibular disorders can also can happen from genetic. It can be genetic or oftentimes unknown what the cause was for vestibular atypical functioning. Proprioception is the unconscious perception of movement and spatial orientation arising from the stimuli in the body itself. In humans, the stimuli are detected by nerves within the body itself, as well as the semicircular canals in the inner ear. Proprioception is often referred as the sixth sense and was developed through the nervous system as a way to keep track and control the body. An example that enables people to understand the sensory system is showing what happens if the sensory system is no longer there. A typical person who is able to move a finger knows where the finger is doing, what they're doing, and does not have to look at the finger to tell what the finger is actually doing. This individual can move the finger back and forth, left and right, turn it in circles. Without proprioception, the brain cannot feel what the finger is doing, and the process must be carried out in conscious and calculated steps. In other words, without this system, you would have to look at your finger to tell it what to do and know what it is doing. But the proprioception system allows us to know what our fingers are doing without actually looking at our fingers. The tactile system includes the nerves under the skin surface that send information to the brain. This information includes the light touch, pain, temperature, and pressure. They play an important role in perceiving the environment as well as protective reactions. Now, the visual system, the auditory system, we know what those are, and we talked last week about weaknesses in those. As I mentioned earlier, people with a weakness in the vestibular system will have poor balance, atypical muscle tone. In the proprioceptive system, they'll be clumsy, or if they have a weakness in the proprioceptive system, they'll be clumsy with a lack of body awareness. And a weakness in the tactical system would have a negative response to touch. And the visual, limited ability to pay attention, limited ability to see. And the auditory, a weakness would be difficulty understanding instructions and using language. Praxis is the process of getting the idea, initiating, and completing new motor tasks. It is the end product of input from all the necessary systems in the brain. Integrated information from the sense of touch, balance, and movement, vestibular, vision, and hearing may all be necessary for good motor planning. Dyspraxis means disoriented motor planning. Apraxia means that motor planning is almost absent. Individuals with motor planning problems have to think harder to complete the new motor tasks than others because of the poor information from the sensory systems. In other words, if they don't have the systems of touch, balance, movement, vestibular, vision, and hearing all feeding the information, then they have to work harder to perform the certain task. Some people have to work harder will simply get tired faster, and some of them might just not be able to do that task, or it might be perceived like they're not trying very hard. Now, bilateral integration is also important. It means integrating both sides of the body. Each brain hemisphere controls the opposite side of the body. By intentionally moving an opposite arm or leg across the midline, the brain fires off both brain hemispheres at the same time, which creates for better neural connections over the corpus callosum. These movements help children coordinate not only gross motor skills, but also fine motor skills and coordination between the upper and lower body, but also help to integrate binocular vision and binaural hearing. So it teaches them to use both eyes by crossing the midline. It teaches them to use both ears. it also makes them more coordinated with both arms and with both their upper body and lower body. It'll just, cross the midline every chance we get will help with fine motor skills, which is their riding. A lack of practice will cause clumsiness, the missed handwriting, problems initiating others, lack of body awareness, the slow and deliberate movements, and trouble keeping rhythm. So what we might call somebody clumsy, or we might call somebody awkward, well, it could just be that lack of praxis where all those information systems aren't being processed, or one of those information systems or more are not even registering in the person's brain. Now, if somebody is not integrating both sides of the body, they could have some of these symptoms here. Obviously, they're pretty similar as some of the other ones, but if they're, you tell them to cross over the midline, you tell them to, what we might call karaoke. When I work with little kids, I call it the crisscross walk, or turn in circles, or you tell them to reach across, and you throw a ball and see if you can catch it across their body, and they're not able to do some of those things. You can cause some of these on the screen. So if they have that atypical performance, if they have some of those cross the midline issues, well, more practice can really, really help. Unfortunately, these guys are not the ones that really just love to go out here and practice, because they're not very good at it. And oftentimes we don't like to do what we're not very good at. Now, if we're really going to integrate the learning in our gym, what we call the integrated learning gym, there's a lot of things we can do. We need to have a lot of cross-lateral movement. Have it so every opportunity we get, we're crossing the midline with both our arms and our legs. The visual tracking, we need to work on that. We can do target games, navigational exercises, and really make it so the eyes are used to looking all around, make it so that both eyes are used to working. And unfortunately, all the time watching TV and playing video games causes muscle atrophy, and so it actually makes them worse at this, which unfortunately is what the kids spend so much time doing. Different things that use crossing the midline are cup stacking, crossovers, crisscross walking, crisscross rope walking. Now, typically, I'm not a big fan of cup stacking. I don't believe it should be made a whole unit. I don't believe it should be made a whole exercise, but I'm all for cup stacking as an activity, as a station, especially if you have some students that really need to work on their fine motor tasks. Now, with that cup stacking, you need to make it cardio, but you can also make it so that within the game you are crossing the midline and not just reaching towards the middle, so you might have to put in some rules to make that happen. Different activities that develop the brain for better vestibular, static, and dynamic balance include the game of Twister, Mini Tramp, Bosu balls, balance beam, therapy balls. We teach so many students how to do the bench press and how to do all these exercises on machines that take away all stabilization and balance. Well, let's make it so they're doing less weight and need more coordination, need more balance. So rather than teach them how to bench press with a big heavy Olympic bar on a flat bench, let's put them with dumbbells on the Bosu ball or on the body ball. All sorts of exercises we can do where we start with lower weight, because we want their stabilization muscles to be strong. We want their balance to be increased. All right. Another good one is juggling. We can start simple with scars, do two balls, 2 scars at a time, move up to 3. Then we can make it cross-curricular. We can do it. Can you do it while reciting the alphabet? Can you do it while reciting your multiplication table, spelling your words? The crisscross rope walking. We a lot of times just have a balance beam out there. Well, just take a jump rope, put it on there, make them walk on that. Take cut down that rope that's hanging from the ceiling, which is just a lawsuit waiting to happen, and then use that to practice walking on. Can they walk on the rope? Can they do it while going sideways? Can they do it while going backwards? Can they bear crawl on it? That's the end of this lesson. As always, I go very fast on these. Don't hesitate to re-watch it, and I'll put the presenter notes online as well.